I'm Paulette Mitchell, the author of 13 cookbooks. I also enjoy traveling the world. These journeys offer inspiration from my recipes, which reflect the cuisines of many countries. Wherever I go, I love to visit food markets. There you can see what people buy to prepare meals for their families. These experiences offer an insider's look at the flavor systems, which make each ethnic cuisine unique. Flavor systems are based on two important factors. First are the indigenous ingredients, the food items that grow in a region based on the geography and climate. Next are the herbs and spices, the components that give the cuisines their unique personalities. Herbs are the leafy parts of a plant. They are at their best when used fresh. If you're interested in gardening, it's easy to grow fresh herbs. They can be planted in the ground, and many grow well in pots. The plants simply need sunshine and plenty of water, and the good news is that the more you use them, the better they grow. For leafy herbs, it's a good idea to pinch off the ends of the stems, which makes the plants bushier and promotes growth. Fortunately, many types of fresh herbs are now available in most supermarkets and farmers markets, so we can have them fresh all year long. When you buy herbs, make sure that they are not wilted and that there are no dark edges. When you get them home, it's a good idea to trim the ends. And then if you plan to use them soon, you can wrap those ends in a moist paper towel. Refrigerate them. But for longer storage, you can place those ends in a glass of cool water and cover the leaves with a plastic bag. I usually attach the bottom with a rubber band. Be sure to refrigerate the herbs too. You can also buy containers made specifically for storing fresh herbs. Never wash fresh herbs until just before using them. Rinse them in cool water and then dry them by rolling in a clean kitchen towel or spin them in a salad spinner. It's important to know that fresh herbs fall into two categories, robust and tender herbs. Robust herbs have tough stems. They're resistant to the heat of the sun and also to the heat of cooking, so they are often used in soups and slow-simmered stews. The stems are quite rigid, so they are not added to recipes. The leaves are strong in aroma and hearty in flavor. Examples are rosemary, thyme, oregano, marjoram, sage, and bay leaf. When you cook with these hearty herbs, you add them early in the cooking process. Their flavor is mellow as the dish cooks. Before cooking, be sure to wash your hands. Herb roasted vegetables are made with robust herbs. Preheat the oven to 425 degrees and line a jelly roll pan with aluminum foil. You'll want to coarsely chop oregano, rosemary, and thyme. Begin by stripping the leaves from the stems. You can use the tender ends and the small leaves too. Okay, give these a coarse chop. And transfer them to a large bowl. Then add some olive oil, coarsely chopped garlic, and season with salt and pepper. For the vegetables, I like to use asparagus. You'll want to remember to trim off the woody ends using just the more tender top parts. And I cut these into about 2-inch strips. Of course, be sure to wash the vegetables before you begin chopping. I like to buy a nice fresh eggplant. Remove both ends for safe chopping. And for this recipe, you'll need only half of the eggplant. So cut down through the center. For some recipes, it's a good idea to remove the peeling, but for this recipe, I think it's just fine to leave it on. Cut each slice lengthwise into 1/2-inch strips. And then also into about 2-inch pieces. It's good to have the vegetables in similar shapes for this recipe. Remove the stem from the red bell pepper. Cut it in half. And remove the seeds and inner membranes. If you'd like, you can rinse this under cool running water. Okay, and then cut the red bell pepper into 1/2-inch strips as well. And so the sizes match, I chop again in the opposite direction. No need to peel the zucchini, just remove the ends. Cut it into 2-inch lengths and then into 1/2-inch strips. We'll also add some red onion. I prefer red onion because it offers a nice color. Always be sure to even the end for safe chopping. And we'll add just 1/2 an onion for this recipe. Remove the peeling. And then cut the onion into strips. Okay, just stir everything together until the vegetables are evenly coated with the herb and olive oil mixture. If you choose to use other vegetables, it's important to add a variety of colors. Spread the vegetables in a single layer on the prepared pan. And then bake in the preheated oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until crisp tender. When the roasted vegetables are done, serve them on a platter. Sprinkle with Parmesan or crumbled feta cheese and garnish with sprigs of fresh rosemary. Robust herbs make great garnishes because they don't easily wilt. Tender herbs are those with tender leaves and soft stems. Perfect examples are basil, parsley, cilantro, mint, dill, and chives. You can use not only the leaves, but also the tender part of the stems in your cooking. Also, it's important to add these herbs toward the end of the cooking period. Tender herbs are nice sprinkled on a completed dish as well. You can tear some of the tender herbs with your fingers or use a sharp knife. For very delicate herbs, such as dill or cilantro, rather than a knife, you can use kitchen scissors to snip them. There are many types of fresh basil, but the most common is this large leaf sweet basil. It's a very popular variety, and it goes especially well with the flavor of tomatoes. So you often find it in tomato sauces and soups, as well as in tomato salads, such as this caprese salad, which is made layering fresh tomatoes with fresh mozzarella cheese and whole fresh basil leaves. You may also be familiar with basil pesto, which is one of the best ways to use this herb. It's also a good way to preserve it when you have more than you can use. To make the pesto, just put all of the ingredients into a food processor. Fresh basil leaves, pine nuts, garlic cloves, some olive oil, and a dash of salt and pepper. Just puree until nearly smooth. It might be necessary to press the sides down for even blending. For an easy and delicious meal, toss cooked pasta such as penne with basil pesto. First, you'll want to thin the pesto with olive oil or cream. For a lighter dish, I use canned chicken broth. Just whisk it together until smooth and add to the pasta. And stir until evenly combined. I also like to add some grape tomatoes and some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And stir again. Basil pesto butter is great on baked potatoes or as a spread for French bread. It's easy to make. Just stir some pesto into room temperature butter. If you have extra homemade pesto, transfer it to a jar and add a thin film of olive oil to prevent the top from darkening. Cover and refrigerate. You can keep it for up to a week, but for longer storage, spoon the mixture into a small freezer container and freeze for up to 2 months. It's a good idea to date the container before freezing. To use, thaw the pesto in the refrigerator or more quickly in the microwave. In some cookbooks, a recipe may call for dried herbs. To use fresh instead, add about 3 times the amount. For example, 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary equals 1 tablespoon of fresh chopped rosemary. In some recipes, it's okay to use dried herbs. They work best in slow-cooked recipes such as some soups and stews, but some herbs dry better than others. For example, I always keep on hand dried oregano and rosemary. In my opinion, dried parsley is unacceptable, and cilantro is used only in its fresh form. It's best to buy small quantities and to mark the containers with the purchase date. Use them within 1 year. Store dried herbs in a dark, dry place, but if they lose their bright color, chances are they have also lost some of their flavor. When you purchase dried herbs, also be aware that some are found in several forms. For example, rubbed or ground sage. Be sure to select the type called for in your recipe. You can perk up ordinary canned tomato sauce by adding dried basil and oregano. Pinching the herbs helps to bring out their flavors. You could heat this mixture and it would make a great topping for spaghetti. Some herbs that taste good in dried form may be available in a pre-blended mixture. One that I always keep on hand is herb de Provence. This is a blend of dried basil, fennel seed, marjoram, rosemary, sage, savory, thyme, and sometimes lavender. It comes from France, where it is used to season dishes of meat, poultry, and vegetables. I like to add it to eggs when I make a scrambled egg or omelet. Spices come from the bark, berries, buds, fruit, roots, seeds, or stems of a plant. Here are some examples. Cinnamon comes from the inner bark of a tropical evergreen tree. Cloves are the immature, unopened flower buds of a tropical tree. Seeds include mustard, coriander, cumin, celery, and caraway. Star anise is the fruit of a small oriental tree. Allspice is a berry that takes its name from its aroma, which is like a combination of spices, especially cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and nutmeg. Many spices can be purchased in 2 forms, whole and ground. If you buy whole spices, they may need to be ground before using. You can use a coffee grinder dedicated specifically and only for spices, or a mortar and pestle. Nutmeg is the seed kernel inside a fruit. The spice is sold in both whole and ground forms, but for vibrant aroma and flavor, it's best to freshly grate it. You can use a fine hand grater made specifically for nutmeg, Or you can buy a grinder in most gourmet shops. Nutmeg is delicious on vanilla pudding. Saffron is the most expensive spice in the world. It comes from the dried stigmas of a small purple crocus. Each flower provides only 3 stigmas, which must be hand-picked. It takes 14,000 of these to equal 1 ounce of saffron. Fortunately, a little goes a long way. There is no substitute for its exquisite flavor and aroma. Also, it's important to buy saffron strands rather than powdered saffron, which may have spices added. You can add a pinch of saffron to the water used to cook rice. The result is a yellow-colored rice with an amazing fragrance. You may be familiar with curry powder, which is a spice blend commonly containing cardamom, chilies, cinnamon, cloves, coriander, cumin, fennel seed, mace, nutmeg, pepper, saffron, and turmeric. The British developed this mixture of flavors, which allows us to make Indian-style dishes quickly and easily. Another less common spice blend is 5-spice powder. This Chinese seasoning is an aromatic mixture of cinnamon, cloves, fennel seeds, star anise, and Szechuan peppercorns. You can find it in Asian markets and in many supermarkets. Generally, spices and spice blends have strong flavors, so they are used in moderation. They offer lots of aroma too. A talk about spices wouldn't be complete without mentioning pepper, the king of spices. You can use pre-ground pepper, but for the best flavor, it's best to use whole peppercorns. Fresh grinding releases the aromatics, so we can enjoy the flavor with our sense of smell as well as with our sense of taste. Black peppercorns come from unripe berries. When berries ripen before drying, the result is white peppercorns. This pepper is often used to avoid black specks in white sauces. It's also commonly used in Asian recipes. Other peppercorns are pink or red, each offering a slightly different flavor. It's fun to use a peppercorn blend. Salt, which was originally used as a way to preserve food, helps to bring out the flavors. Most common is table salt, which is fine-grained and has an anti-caking agent to prevent lumping and humidity. It also may have iodine added. Many chefs prefer kosher salt. It generally has no additives, which means a more pure flavor. And the irregularly shaped flakes offer a large surface area which our taste buds perceive. Many chefs think this means less is needed. Some grocers and specialty shops offer other salts. Most salt is mined, but other salts come from the sea and are the result of the evaporation of seawater. Coarsely ground salt can be added to cooking liquid, such as when making pasta. Fine salt is usually added to cooked food. Other salts are black or pink, each with a slightly different quality. There are also specialty salts, such as French sel gris and fleur de sel, which offer light, delicate flavors. These are used to sprinkle on already cooked dishes. The word salt was derived from the Latin term salarium, which was the name for a soldier's pay in the army of ancient Rome. The pay included a large ration of salt, which at the time was a spice of high value and also a medium of exchange, thus the origin of such expressions as salt of the earth and worth his weight in salt. Use herbs and spices as well as salt and pepper to flavor the dishes you cook. Take your culinary creations from ordinary to extraordinary.